GT Channel with Sam Itani, James McKeon, and Taro Koki.
Hello, everybody from quarantine shutdown USA. I am still here in my beautiful studio, which is a virtual background, but it looks much better than the backgrounds of my colleagues here. Taro Koki, GT Channel, the man who makes all of this thing, all of these podcasts possible, and our token British guy with a British accent, James McKeon. No Breaking podcast on almost every week, James, right now?
When we go out of quarantine, we'll be back to every week. Yes, Sam. Okay. But at this moment in time, we're still off the air. But I'm surprised you had a throw at my wonderful virtual background here that I've got going on. I mean, I made changes from our last episode in the hope that...
well, the bed looks like it's a little neater because the last time the bed wasn't made, but it's all right. Wow. And today we have a wonderful special guest with us, Megan Leatham. Is that how I pronounce it?
It's Leatham, but I get Leatham all the time, so I'm good with whatever.
Okay.
What? Come on, Sam.
Hey.
Come on, Sam. So we've gone through this with McKeon for 21 episodes now, and then some. Come on.
I'm still having a hard time pronouncing James's last name. So Leatham. So Megan Leatham.
You got it.
Yeah, she is all things Pikes Peak. And Taro will be taking care of most of the questions because Taro's been to Pikes Peak. How many times have you been there, Taro?
I've been a couple times, 2-3 times maybe.
No, that's
not enough. Not enough though.
2 times more than me. Yeah, it's beautiful country, and Megan is going to share with us a lot of things that are happening these days with Pikes Peak and things that are going to happen in the future. So, Taro, go ahead and take it away.
All right, Megan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you all. And I will have to say, Sam, your background it's money in the bank.
Thank you very much. I'm proud of it. These guys won't give me any credit for it, but.
How much did he pay you? How much did he pay you? That's what we want to
know. Checks in the mail.
Megan, you are the executive director of the official name, Broadmoor Pikes Peak International Hillclimb, presented by Gran Turismo, right?
You got it.
So what do you do?
That is a very, very good question. People ask that all the time. So it is a year-round full-time job. There's myself and then 5 other full-time staff. So it's basically everything, Taro. There's so much that goes into this event logistically. So one of the most challenging things is we don't own our own race course. So it's a public toll road 364 days out of the year. We work with the city of Colorado Springs, Pikes Peak America's Mountain, and the Forest Service to basically rent the road from them for 1 day out of the year. So set up, take down, when you don't own your own venue, everything gets really tricky. One other really interesting thing about Pikes Peak is it actually, the course itself goes through 2 different counties. So it goes through El Paso County and Teller County. So logistically, you can imagine just the challenges that we run into. But we have great support here from the city and a wonderful working relationship. But along with just the logistics of the setup, we work all year round, everything from the competitor registration to press releases to, the small waiver language on the website. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's really, it's really sort of being a small business owner, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we do absolutely everything from top to bottom.
And you just said the race was 1 day, but the event itself and the practice runs and the qualifying happens a week before the main day, though.
Yeah, so it really is, there's 10 days of racing up on Pikes Peak, but 1 is race day. The other days, this is what makes the race so unique and so challenging on the competitors, is we have to get our trial runs in prior to the road opening for the general public. So on our practice day mornings, we typically we open the gates around 3:30 or 4, and then we start as soon as the sun rises. So it's a really interesting thing for the competitors, having to just adjust to those early mornings. And then what else is unique? The competitors only get 1 shot, 1 run, 1 full run on race day. Right. The practice days, we split the course into 3 different sections. So they move each day. They'll run the bottom section and then the middle section and then the upper section. So what makes it really challenging is they don't get to see the full run until they're on it on race day.
So walk us through the week for you guys. I mean, I've been there as a media partner and, waking up at literally 1 a.m., right?
Right.
to have to be there in time to set up and everything. But what's your week like?
Yeah, it is a very, very busy week. I can say that. So it all really starts as far as just the go, 1 month prior to the event. So what happens, what it looks like about 14 days out is we have this crazy staff schedule. You should see it. It's legal paper, 15 pages long, and it basically breaks down where everyone is supposed to be at exactly what time every single day. So if we know that the start line structure is getting built on the Monday, we make sure someone's there to meet the start line guys to make sure they build it properly. It's our team there early in the morning making sure that the waivers get signed. So it is just absolutely crazy, but we try to get as much down on paper as possible in order to have it go as smoothly as possible, and then we just adjust as it happens. When the intern accidentally sleeps in and misses waiver signing, we have to adjust on the fly.
Right. And tell us about this year. So obviously you guys have been affected. What's the race schedule like? And you guys had an announcement today, I hear.
Yeah, this funny that we planned this podcast almost a month ago, and then today was the day we made a pretty large announcement. So the good news is, the race will go on. So we are set for August 30th. Preserving the history and the legacy of this event is so vitally important. So we are proud to announce that green flag will be dropped on August 30th. Unfortunately, the sad news.
Your audio is breaking up a little. Is it just me or?
Oh, she broke up.
Yeah.
Oh,
you guys have me?
Oh,
now we're back.
Now we hear you. Okay, so go back to where I was doing this.
1 second here.
And we could edit that out.
See, this is the magic of on being live. It's great.
Are we on live too, Taro?
We are live. We're live on Facebook.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Well, this is expected.
Look, it happens in all the big networks.
Oh no, she's gone. She says we're done.
She's had enough. She's had enough of Sam Matani. She said she's only going to come back
if
Sam
she's
puts the sunglasses on.
The big guns in. She's bringing the big guns in. I think we could. Oh, you just muted it, Megan.
You're on mute. So weird. We just had her for 5 minutes.
Did we lose her? James, the heck are you doing?
I'm not doing anything, Sam, but I want to
turning the
know.
knobs in the back.
So what years did you two go to Pikes Peak then? Since
I went, well, it was still half paved. So that's why I was talking to her about the half, the paved.
Yeah.
It was
I
really
like those
good.
days.
Yeah,
days.
I mean, I could have drove it if I would have taught Suzuki, which was, doing business here back then, because they were thinking of going, Monster Tajima brought Suzuki. So I was trying to talk North American Suzuki to give me a car to drive in the event, but they didn't have the funds, and they were supporting Monster Tajima. I don't know if you guys remember him, but
he was up there with the Escudo.
Yeah, and he had the record for a while,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and he's a very, very nice guy as well when I met him.
Great nice guy. You know why they called him Monster though?
No.
Not because of his driving. Yeah, it's because of his face. It's so horrible, Japanese. Remember they called Hideki Matsui, the New York Yankees guy? They called him Godzilla because of his face. Yeah, that's
all right, we got Megan.
Hello,
back.
Megan. Can you hear me?
Nope. We're still having
no,
problems.
Megan, you're on mute. Do you know you're on mute? Can you hear me?
She's off.
I think she's in another office. Oh, there she goes.
So,
I'm here. Hold on.
Oh,
we got you back.
Hey.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. Our Wi-Fi went out, so I had to do a little scramble.
Well, you guys are in the mountains over there. So.
I'm here though.
All right.
Sorry about that. Right during the announcement too.
Wow.
This gives us an excuse to do the announcement over. So take it away, Megan.
It's like some angry fan in the back just unplugged the Wi-Fi.
It was Sam.
No kidding, right? It literally popped up, internet unstable. And so back to the announcement. As I was saying is, yes, the green flag will be dropped on August 30th. We are very excited to still be able to do that. Our competitors have worked so hard up to this point, and as I was saying, the history and the legacy of this event is so vitally important. So the fact that we're able to have an event is the positive. The really unfortunate thing is we did have to announce today that we wouldn't be allowing spectators on Pikes Peak this year. It was a really difficult decision. You know, we have the best fans in the entire world, and it's just a really difficult time, and operationally trying to figure out how to continue to have them up there with the current restrictions that are in place. So unfortunately, they'll have to wait till 2021, but we're, again, the positive is we are going to have a race. And I think that that's what we're trying to keep in the front of our minds is just, you know, that in 2020, there will be a Pikes Peak International Hillclimb.
Well, it's unfortunate that the fans won't be able to go, but you know, under these circumstances, at least you're having the race. I think that's a positive, and fans will also be able to see the race online or somewhere.
Yeah, we're still sorting out a couple of details. As you can imagine, it's a busy time, but yes, we're looking at doing a webcast it's going to be on our YouTube channel and then also on the Mobile One Facebook page. So in all fairness, one of the most challenging things about Pikes Peak is the connectivity. Imagine if you
just got an example of that.
Yeah, Pikes Peak or right here at the office, I guess, is a good thing. And so, can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Of course. Wonderfully.
Perfect. So one of the most difficult things is the connectivity. Imagine if you were just to go out in the woods, go climb a mountain, and you don't have cell service. And so that is one of the things that we consistently have a really hard time with. Again, we don't own our own race course, so it's not like we can put in the infrastructure year after year. Everything that we put up, we have to take down. So we do build a network up there, and we've worked out so many technical issues in the past, but bandwidth, line of sight, those sort of things are true challenges with any mountain in the world, you know. So, but we're confident, and we feel that this year we're going to be able to put together a webcast. We don't exactly know what it'll look like. It's not going to be this huge live full production. But we're going to have 5 or 6 cameras. We're going to be able to see the cars start and finish. We're going to have the times. So the world can still be watching. And unfortunately, again, they'll have to wait to 2021 to be on site. But we have the best fans in the world, and we know they'll wait and they'll support us until we can get them back up on the hill.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't realize that it's a public road, right? And it's really on top of a mountain, and you have to go all the way to the summit. So just like you said, you try to use your mobile phone on the top of a mountain, it's usually not going to work. So we understand the challenges that you have trying to broadcast something like that out to the world with limited coverage.
Hey, may I ask a question, Taro, to Megan?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Megan, what is the participation, the field look like, as in the number of competitors? Is it quite a bit down from usual?
No, it's about what we expected on the car side. We have 60 competitors this year. One really good news is since the initial announcement in March of us postponing until August, we've only had 4 competitors, unfortunately, say they're not going to be able to attend this year. And all 4 are from overseas, which makes sense. And it's all just due to travel logistics and restrictions. One thing is a lot of those competitors have to ship their vehicles, and it's hard to know if they should ship them when they don't even know if they themselves are going to be able to travel here.
Yeah.
So we feel really, really excited about the field this year. And as I mentioned, so many of these competitors have worked all year long on their vehicles, and so they want a chance to race. And I know that they're disappointed as well that there won't be spectators, but it's often them against the mountain, and I think that they'll be excited when they reach that checkered flag.
Nice. James, jump in if you have any questions.
Certainly, Megan. So I just had questions basically around the event itself. I mean, obviously, with this year being an exception for sort of everything in the world, with people wanting to come watch in 2021, what are things that you'd suggest from your experience for people who are coming obviously there for the first time? What do you think they need to do or in preparation or some of the highlights they can look forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple exciting things are we have 2021, and then also the year after that, 2022, is our 100th running. So that year is going to be just off the charts. But in the interim for 2021, the biggest thing is there are 7 spectator areas along the course. So it's not just like there's, the course, it's 12.42 miles, and it's not just like there's spectators lined up everywhere. One of the reasons is we have to park all the cars somewhere, right? Because the road that the spectators use to go up then becomes the race course. So we've designated 7 areas along the course where we also have parking for the spectators to be able to watch. So I think the biggest thing is prepare for all 4 seasons. And you think I'm joking, but literally it can be sunny and hot and then 5 minutes scaling, and it happens so fast, especially on Pikes Peak. So, but I think it's also one of the most beautiful what's just wild if you're ever up there, especially at Devil's Playground or someplace above treeline, is the juxtaposition of this beautiful mountain and the scenery, and then it's a race course. Like, when in the world does that happen? So yes, we have a challenging venue operationally, but we have an amazing venue, and it's one of the most beautiful in the world.
Yeah. What is your favorite part of the race? What's your favorite moment you've had?
Like,
so
my
far?
favorite moment, I think it's weird. I look at Pikes Peak slightly different than everybody else. We have a saying here, and the mountain decides. So the minute you think you have her figured out, she'll throw a curveball at you, such as this year. And throughout the history, actually, if you look at the history going back all the way to 1916, I think it was 1930 during the Great Depression, only 6 competitors actually ran that year, which is crazy to think about. And then in the 40s, there were 4 years that it didn't run due to the war. So it's, I think that's one of the most unique things about Pikes Peak is curveballs happen, obstacles happen, and it's our job as a staff to overcome and find a way to continue this prestigious race in the history. To answer your question though, Taro, I think one moment, and this is probably a lot of our fans' moments as well, but seeing what Volkswagen did when Romain broke the record was pretty cool. And not from a mechanical side, absolutely, but from an operating side, the amount of work that their team put into that was phenomenal. I honestly think I was working with 20 different people at one time, just for Volkswagen. There's so many things that people didn't think about, and why would you? It's not their job to. But for example, their generator, it was a big generator, and it didn't. The gateway at Pikes Peak, which is about 6 miles below the start line, it didn't fit under. The generator didn't fit. So day we'd have to escort the generator out up the up lane when tourists were coming. So there were just so many things like that. The list goes on. And so I remember watching their crew that day, and once Romain took off, and then once he finished and they saw the times, just seeing them erupt, it was a pretty cool moment. And in my job, I honestly don't care who wins. It's not my job to care. My job is to put on a fair event for all competitors. Getting to know a lot of those crew and just working with them so closely on the logistical side made it really cool to watch them celebrate.
Yeah,
and
Romain's record is not going to be broken for a while. I don't know.
Well, we thought Sebastian Loeb's
I know.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, because he shattered the record. Then Romain came
destroyed it.
Crazy. So
I said after Loeb, I didn't think that the record would be broken in my lifetime, and sure enough, just a handful of years later. So I have a feeling there's a couple manufacturers out there eyeing the 2022 event and seeing what they can do.
Yeah.
You think electric cars will be more and more the prominent player at Pikes Peak?
You know, it's definitely something we're seeing a lot of, especially as that technology is becoming just more and more, you know, out in the world. And as we know, so many manufacturers are hoping to eventually move to all electric or whatever. So, you know, one thing that's great about Pikes Peak is we really pride ourselves on being a stomping ground for manufacturers to new technology. So with that, and as electrics continue to develop, I do anticipate that continuing to be something that we see on Pikes Peak.
Can you talk about to our audience a little bit why electric cars are so, they easily perform, or they have such an advantage at Pikes Peak?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that makes them different than a gas-powered vehicle is they just don't lose their horsepower at altitude. So that's the crazy thing people don't necessarily think about our course. Yes, it's the length. Yes, it's all the turns, but the altitude that change from the start to finish is immense. And so that's one thing that gives the electrics a little bit of an advantage. But the other part of that is the electrics have to keep their charge all the way through. So that also is something that it just adds a different element.
Yeah. It's a glorious event, right? But you know, like you said, it's a dangerous event at the same time. We've all seen the Evo fall off of off the cliff, you know, and the car get mangled. How do you guys, you know, deal with all the danger and the risk?
Yeah, you know, that's a question honestly more for the competitors. They're the true heroes when you think about it. They're literally putting their life on the line every year they come to race Pikes Peak. We work really hard as an organization to keep our spectators safe, our media safe, and do all the precautions that we can over a 12.42 mile course. You know, it's not just like we can monitor one area. So to be fair, I can't even imagine what goes through the competitors' minds right before they leave the start line and get the green flag. It's a very challenging race. It's a very dangerous race. I get scared driving up there just in my own little car going the speed limit. So I can't even imagine what goes through their minds. But it is definitely dangerous and challenging. I think that's what also gives that adrenaline to the competitors. That's why they race as well, is just that adrenaline that is beyond anything I would ever want. But so yeah, I think that question is more for them and what goes through their minds.
Interesting. Yeah, I've driven up the mountain, and it's pretty hairy. You know, it's scary. Plus, I get altitude sickness, so I'm already feeling a little like woozy when I'm up there.
Yeah. A lot of our competitors actually do now run with oxygen too. It's interesting. We leave it up to each competitor to choose what suits them best. You know, we want them to feel comfortable racing, but hypoxia is a real thing. So a lot of them have decided to choose to run with oxygen as they head up.
And you're a native of Colorado Springs, right? And so you grew up watching and knowing about this race?
You know what? This is gonna be a shocker, but I actually I've obviously known of the race, but I had never attended the event until I got this job, which is actually crazy. You know, but I'm not an auto sport enthusiast per se. I love sports. I love competition. But my background really isn't so much on the automotive side and the thickness of the roll cage and the different tires, but it's just trying to put on a world-class event. And that's my job. I think I'm more of an event planner, event organizer, trying to make this race the best we possibly can for everyone involved. And that's the competitors, that's the media, that's the spectators. It's really just, it's trying to make it's every little piece of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny having this job, not being a huge automotive enthusiast, but I also think that's kind of what makes it great for me, is because I can look at it from a different perspective and more from the event side, and then use really smart people around me to handle all of the technical issues.
So speaking of the event side, then you obviously talked about already how Volkswagen needed to have a little bit of your help to get their generator up the mountain. How often would you say that that happens, where you get these super last minute, very unexpected events in that that week leading up to race day? And then like even on race day, I mean, how many times are you getting this call that's like, we need this done like 30 seconds ago and it's going to take 2 hours to do? How often does that happen?
Well, that's a very, very good question. So obviously with it being such a big event, and then obviously with so many intricacies and so many things we can't control, it's ever changing. Race week is every day can look extremely different. It's one of the things that is the most interesting too, is the sheer amount of questions that we get, because Pikes Peak is confusing. And if you've never been there and you've never seen it, it's really hard to navigate, where do I go? What do I, even for crew members. So we get hundreds and hundreds of emails and phone calls every day, the race month leading up to it. But we welcome them, because we would much rather make sure that the media is informed on where to go prior to having media meetings and PowerPoints and everything explaining it, than them lost at 4 a.m, driving up Pikes Peak, not trying to figure out where to go. So, and then obviously the other thing that happens is the competition itself. With the way we structure the practice and the 3 groups that I was telling you about, one other piece of it is the race day run order is actually set based upon the competitors' qualifying times. So you might say, well, how do they get a qualifying time if they don't get a chance at the full course? So we use the lower section as their qualifying time. So we take their times from the lower section, all 3 days, we merge it together to come up with the run order. So that's a small example of the things we're doing behind the scenes. We're waiting quickly, trying to get the times, then trying to get them in the run order, try to get it out to the world, also making sure everything is accurate, and making sure that the competitors know exactly what to do on race day, where to be in line and ready to race.
I got another question is, on a normal year, not this year, obviously,
Sure.
how many the crowds, about how many people do you average on race day?
So one of the things that's interesting is we're limited on the number of people we can have on Pikes Peak, again, due to our operating agreement with the Forest Service and the city, but also too logistically, we have nowhere else to park cars. So we've worked out this formula of, the average number of people in the cars and how many cars can fit above the start line and a bunch of boring things you don't need to know. But the max we're able to have due to Forest Service restrictions are about 10,000 people. We fluctuate any year from 7,000 to 8,500. And to be honest, I think that the 10,000 is a little bit of a stretch, just logistically wise with the number of cars that fit. I think we're probably maxed out about 8,500. If you've ever seen the way we get an aerial footage of like Devil's Playground with the cars, we pack them in because they can't go anywhere during the race. So they're bumper to bumper packed in, but we try to get as many people up there as we can so they can enjoy the event.
If they for next year, if people are interested in attending, do they just go to the website and find?
Yeah, we'll launch our 2021 tickets in December. Usually we try to do it in time for the holidays. That is one thing that, just so everyone knows, with us eliminating spectators this year, anyone that had brought tickets is in fact going to get a full refund, of course. That is just vitally important that everyone gets a full refund. So yeah, our tickets will be available on our website, usually about in December. And then one other really cool opportunity is camping. It's the only day in the entire year you're allowed to camp on Pikes Peak is the night before our event. So we have camping passes. People can get up there the night before the event. That way they don't have to get up at 1 a.m. to find their spectator area, and they can come camp and check it out. And like we said, for 2021, knowing that they've all had a year off, we expect the camping to sell out super fast.
It'll probably be super clean because no one's used it this year. right?
That is true. We do have to, you should see the cleanup we have to do the day after. So we're up there with our garbage picker uppers.
You guys do that too. Wow, you guys do
The
everything.
mountains clean for the
I think
tourists.
Sam's volunteering to help with that garbage cleanup. I think that's
Oh,
isn't that right, Tara?
Yeah, I think so.
Come on up.
Sure. I'd be up for that. For those who want to compete, what are the requirements? Because we see so many manufacturers kind of putting out efforts these days, where it used to be a lot of private, private people. But what if a private team or a private person wanted to actually compete?
Sure, great question as well. So we have a request for invitation process. So it usually opens in mid-November, and then the competitors submit a request for invitation. And basically we look at it's almost like a job resume, right? So, or a job application. We require them to kind of submit everything. So what's the vehicle, year, make, model, all the specs, references, and then racing resume. I think that's one thing, we get calls literally from someone like me that's like, hi, I'd like to enter Pikes Peak and we're a professional race car driver. And they're like, oh no, it's just on my bucket list. We get that all the time. As Taro mentioned earlier, it's a dangerous race. It's one of the best in the world. One of the things over time is we're really excited to see the car times, the finish times shrink, right? So instead of having one really fast time and then a 15-minute vehicle down here, our goal is to make the quality like this and make it just such competition. So that's the long-term goal. We really want professionals up on Pikes Peak. So it's not a bucket list thing for the neighbor or anything like that. It is truly professionals. And so when they submit the request for invitation in November, they have from November to early January typically. And then we have a selection process. So we have a selection committee. It's made up of 9 different members. And we look at every application, if you will. And the committee, we have a very fair, honest system, and we select the fields. It's, and then we do have a wait list often years, and then we do have some immediate declines. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting process. It's a very fair process. I think one thing that gets a little challenging is those sort of on the bubble from being allowed entrance into the field and then on the wait list. It's sort of like the NCAA tournament, just smaller scale, right? But there's the teams on the bubble first for it, and it's interesting to see the committee members different takes on it, right? Because it's not black and white. It's not so much like, oh, this person's in for sure. Some of the committee members really look at experience on Pikes Peak. Like that is something that is very, very important to them versus a rookie that might have a lot of other racing experience, but is that racing experience on asphalt? That's another big thing because Pikes Peak is now fully paved. So there's so much that goes into it, but since we've started that, I think we started that in 2016. And it's just been fantastic, again, to see the quality of the competitors that we have.
That's awesome.
That's cool. What do you guys do your own sanctioning, or do you use FIA, some kind of regulation for your cars, or how do you do that?
It's 100% self-sanctioned. So we have quite a hefty rule book. It's 76 pages long. If you dive in, or Sam, if you get bored, you can just read it through. It's pretty exciting, let me tell you.
Well, during this lockdown, I got nothing better to do, so
hey.
I'll be a pro on that subject.
So we've seen a lot of videos on your YouTube channel. You guys have made a lot of progress. Tell your audience where they can find you and your content.
Sure.
Where they should follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one huge thanks to GT Channel and Taro and his staff for really kind of helping us along with our YouTube channel. The partnership we have with you is phenomenal, and we just really appreciate that and thank you enough. And I know as you are all transitioning to the creator formula, what you've been able to help us with has been phenomenal. So cheers, and thank you all for that.
Thanks for the plug.
You can see, you can see our YouTube channel here. It's great. We have obviously all of the playlists set up. It's the onboard footage that we receive from the competitors every year. along with their finish interviews. We have helicopter highlight reels. So if you're looking at, oh, I'd really like to see, you know, someone's run in 2017, you can go on here, search for them, find their particular run. What lines did they take? How did they attack that corner or this corner? It's pretty exciting, and we're looking to put out even more and more content and new content, especially as you mentioned, Sam, it is quarantine world, so we're trying to get as much content as we can. There's also some historical videos up there, so you can get lost in it, that's for sure.
Hey, James, I want to ask you, how do you think a Formula One car would do? I know it's two-wheel drive, and it's pretty much gasoline powered, even though it has, like, you know, the regenerative system in there. But how do you think that would do up on Pikes Peak?
I think it would go very well, but I don't know if it'd be able to pip the Volkswagen.
I don't know either.
I think it'd be very difficult because obviously the Volkswagen has the four-wheel drive, which makes it good, and as Megan pointed out, it's got the electricity, so it's not going to drop any power where it goes. But then again, I mean, they could always obviously change the Formula One car on the fly. It's got much more potential to be able to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
So you never really know.
And Megan, Formula E car.
Megan, I'm thinking now that the Volkswagen, the Volkswagen record is something that may not be broken in our lifetimes. You know, I mean, that is a crazy time.
Yeah, it was a pretty phenomenal what they were able to do. But as I mentioned, I have a feeling someone else will go after it in the near future.
Yeah. Also, I've noticed that we haven't had a U.S. driver win this dang event since 2005. Now,
who was the last American to win this?
Say again?
Gosh.
Who was the last American?
I will tell you right now. It was a guy named David Donner in a Donner Dykstra special. But that time was 11 minutes and 15 seconds, which is, and, you know, Dumas' time, you know, Volkswagen Romaine's time was 7 minutes and 57 seconds. So it's like you almost slice that thing in half. It's just crazy. But maybe, but, you know, the person who won it before that was Robbie Unser. So we had a guy named Robbie Unser win it. But maybe 2020 with people who can't, you know, travel from abroad, this might be the chance we get an American guy up there. Do we have a lot of Americans in the starting field, Megan?
Yeah, there is. I think there's close to 50.
50 out of the 60?
Yes, at this time, I do think that that's true. But that is just to your point, Sam. One of the other things that makes this event what it is it really is the Pikes Peak International Hillclimb.
Right.
The support and the competitors come from all over the world. Same with the media stories and the outlets. It's funny to look at those maps on where articles are being written. I mean, we really are worldwide. It's pretty phenomenal.
Keep those Scandinavian WRC guys out of here, man.
You guys have that relationship with Sony for a couple of years now, right? Now, can folks go and practice and, you know, experience this on Gran Turismo already? Is it already in the game?
As of right now, it is not, but our partnership with Gran Turismo has just been phenomenal. It started 5 years ago, and as you mentioned at the start of this, it's the Broadmoor Pikes Peak International Hillclimb brought to you by Gran Turismo. So they've been phenomenal partners, and we are looking forward to hopefully another 5 years with them as that at that sponsorship level. So fingers crossed for the future about potentially being in one of their games. But we will work with them on that and see what we can do.
I'll give it the next version that's coming out, right?
Oh, that's right. GT7 is coming out at some point.
Shout out to our buddies there.
And that'll give it another international boost, you know?
Absolutely. And they've just been fantastic partners of ours, and we're very lucky that they're behind this race and supporting us.
So Taro, I want to ask you, why isn't it called GT Channels Broadmoor? I can't even remember the whole name. Pikes Peak Hillclimb. Okay.
We're open to it, Taro. We're open to it.
Come on, Taro,
bring the
goods.
You got to bring the goods. All right. Well, hey, thanks for being on the show. I have last question. So
sure.
If, you know, someone young, maybe even, you know, a woman, a female, like you're a rare you're rare in this business to be running a.
Watch out, Taro.
Well, how would a young, girl or a female, get into this business? I mean, you obviously did it.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give them?
I think that's a very fair question, because I love my job and I love coming to work every day. And as I mentioned, again, it's just the event side of it all. But I think that the biggest thing I've learned in all walks of life, and it's how I fell into this job too, is it's relationship building and it's networking, and it's not burning bridges. If you decide you don't want to do your restaurant job anymore, make sure you give in your 2 weeks notice and make sure you do it the right way. I think that there's so much about communication, and I've worked really hard to not burn any bridge with anyone I've worked with or cross paths with. And the other thing I would say for me is just being dependable. I think that that's so important, and doing what you say you're going to do. And I think that is it still is something that our whole team here thinks about every single day. We really do return every email and every phone call, and it's because we said we're going to get back to you, and so we will. And I think that that's a small thing. It's not big overarching like, oh, get this major, have this minor in college, but it's it's dependability. I think can go a long way these days, because so many people don't end up following up with what they say they're going to do. So follow up, be kind, and just try not to burn bridges, and life will take you in a good direction, I guess.
Great advice. Great advice.
I hope
There
Sam
are a
listens to
woman
that.
in a man's world right now, so hopefully that'll start changing more with drivers and, just people be inspired by your participation,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much for having me, and thanks again for all you do as our partners. We're very lucky to work with all three of you, and again, thank you so much for your guidance and assistance with our YouTube channel and having me here today. It's been great.
Awesome.
you.
We'll be watching
Thanks so much.
August 30th.
Awesome. Sorry about the technical difficulties. What can we
Oh,
It happens to us whenever we got Sam on the line. It always happens. It's the problem we have with
Thanks,
Sam.
Sam.
Nice
It
always happens. Don't worry.
Colorado flavor there. The mountains. So.
All right, Megan.
All
Thank you.
right.
Megan, see ya.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay,
so
bye-bye.
much.